Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Calhoun's. I was at Calhoun's on the river with friends this week. Beautiful view of the river. The misters were out. Nice big fan to keep everybody cool. Always great food at Calhoun's. Enjoy the warm weather on a Calhoun's patio or deck this week. Calhoun's, the taste of Tennessee. All right, want to welcome in. We already teased his presence in the last segment. Welcome in to Mike Strange. Good to have you here.
Good morning.
Our resident Hall of Famer is with us. A few more notes from yesterday and the post-scrimmage press conference from Jeremy Pruitt. Where are they? There we go. Darren Kirkland Jr. did not take part in the scrimmage. There were rumors out there that, hey, wait a second, he may be hurt. He's out for the year. Somehow that got kicked around on social media yesterday that he was out for the year. Well, Jeremy Pruitt said that he wanted to play and he felt great. Wanted to go. They just gave him a maintenance day, although they did give him maintenance days all week long. So Darren Kirkland Jr. didn't practice much this week. Juwan Jennings, after what I was told, I talked to somebody over there who said he had a real rough week this week. He did take part in the scrimmage yesterday. I was told he still doesn't look even close to 100%. Now, that was before yesterday's scrimmage. But he was out there yesterday. When asked about J.J. Peterson, see if you've heard this before, Pruitt said he's finishing up one class, and when he finishes up, he'll be up here. In other words, no change. Same thing we've said the last 5 weeks here on Sundays. We'll see if Mr. Peterson does finally arrive. And then finally, regarding the offensive line, let's go to this one. To start the scrimmage, I really felt like the offensive line kind of dominated the ones and the twos, even the threes. I thought they did a good job. You could see the line of scrimmage changing. That don't say much about the defensive front. But as practice went, I don't know if it was because of how hot it was or how many snaps guys had taken, but you saw guys who weren't performing at the end of practice like they were at the beginning. That's not exactly what we're looking for. We want to finish better than we start. Gentlemen, your thoughts on Jeremy Pruitt's comments about the offensive line? This is 2 scrimmages in a row where, judging by what they say, running game has looked good, the offensive line has looked good. Mike Strange, I'll start with you. Is that a sign that an offensive line that was terrible last year is better, or a sign that a defensive line that was terrible last year is still terrible?
Well, it's probably both, but I think it's encouraging after watching that offensive line, not just last year, but even in previous years, but especially last year. I think it's encouraging for the head coach to say that they're dominating somebody.
Yeah, especially for now, let me put it this way. Let me flip what I was about to say, especially for a defensive coach to say that.
Yeah.
But defensive coach, he commented also on tackling, and he said, well, I'm never going to say it's good tackling unless it's perfect tackling. How much of this is the fact that he's a defensive guy, or is there any chance they're not as dominant as we're believing, that's being seen through the eyes of a defensive coordinator who doesn't want them winning anything at the line of scrimmage?
Well, he said dominant at the start of practice. What was it, 131 snaps?
Yeah.
So how many snaps did the ones actually get against the other ones? And 2, they weren't good at the end. Okay, I'd like to know how many snaps did the first offensive line get, because if you say they divided up and they got half, that doesn't sound good, because that would be roughly 65 snaps. Hopefully your offense is going to have a few more. I don't think you're going to see the numbers up in the 90s. But I think the offensive line maybe not be good, but I have a little more confidence that they can be better than I thought going into the season.
And we touched on that last week. Here's the other thing that you would have to, if you're looking for a positive in this, that your offensive line is looking good. It's still looking good without Trey Smith. He started the week, they were using him at left guard. By the end of the week, they're moving him to left tackle. He did not take part in the scrimmage yesterday. He is supposed to be cleared to finally get back on the practice field and have contact tomorrow. So if he goes into left tackle and they move Drew Richmond to right tackle, perhaps that's what you've seen a little bit, or what we've heard a little bit.
Yeah.
If they do that and you're already looking good without Trey Smith, that would have to be a positive sign.
I think the offensive line definitely, to me, is you got to be more encouraged by what you've heard and seen about that group, and it's because of the options you have there now. Jameer Johnson, the junior college transfer, the guy Jeremy Pruitt spoke highly of yesterday. We're hearing more good things about K'Ron Calvert. That's 9 or 10 guys now when you throw in Trey Smith and Chance Hall, who could be major factors. So I think you feel better about that group, but I think that what he didn't say about the defensive line is also very telling. I think he's very concerned about that defensive line. The depth there in particular, you've got 4 veterans who are going to be playing a lot of snaps for this team. If you lose any of those guys, you're in trouble.
And one of those is Shy Tuttle, who's got history with injuries.
Kyle Phillips as well.
Yeah.
Kyle Phillips as well. Your thoughts, Josh, on
Yeah,
the O-line, D-line?
Yeah, to me, the big positive takeaway would be that offensive line doing well without Trey Smith, because you know he's going to play well if he's 100% out there on the field, and you're going to have to run the football, I think, effectively starting week 1 against West Virginia. The defensive concern is a carryover from the spring. I think that's going to be something we talk about through a lot of the year, and a lot of that conversation will start with depth along the defensive line. I think that's one of your biggest concerns.
They're going to need some of those freshmen that they signed to develop pretty quickly in terms of creating depth, because it's the SEC season. You know they're going to run down a lot of guys there, run through a lot of guys there by the end of the season, so you're going to need some freshmen there. You mentioned Chance Hall. He was asked about Chance Hall, and did Chance Hall take part in yesterday's scrimmage? Jeremy Pruitt kind of sidestepped the question. He danced around it, so whether Chance Hall was big in the scrimmage or not, we are left to wonder. Mike, how concerned are you about the defensive line? You say you take most of this as a positive about the offensive line, but where are you with the defensive line right now? I mean, worried like everyone else?
You know, it's, yeah, I guess so, but you look at it and they've got players, they've got guys that if they can stay healthy and be developed, it's not like you're having got a bunch of walk-ons out there. You got some guys who have been at some point in their career really good football players. So if you want to be a glass half full guy,
there's reason.
There's reason.
So
to
let's
be.
come
Yeah,
back
I
to
really
glass
do
half
think so.
empty then. I mean, yeah, you do have some veteran players. You've got some guys that performed, and once again, I think Shy Tuttle is probably the best example, a guy who's performed at a high level. But you do only have 4 or 5 of them, and I think around the SEC nowadays, most teams probably have 8 to 10 of those guys. And there is part of your problem is your drop-off from the first 4 to your next 4 that big.
Yeah, there's a part A and part B to the depth conversation. Part A, you have a lot of players. I think a lot of different position groups. Part B is how many of those guys does Tennessee's coaches trust right now? I think that's what they're trying to figure out, is how many guys can they count on in big games.
And it's odd to see that they're seemingly liking the younger, newer offensive linemen more than they are the defensive linemen, which at Tennessee, that's a big flip-flop over what we've seen in a while.
It'll be interesting to see what, I mean, we're all building toward West Virginia. We're talking, in the next segment, we're going to talk about what the secondary could look like against West Virginia. But there's a real good chance what you see at the 1st of October is a whole lot different than what you see at the 1st of September with this team, with so many young bodies, new coaches, new staff, everything. I just don't know that you can say, all right, here's what you're going to have for the season. I think you may see this in stages. Here's the September team. Here's the October lineup. Here's the November lineup. So, all right, and not just due to injury, but due to guys developing and coaches picking their favorites. But all right, when we come back, as I said, we're going to take a look at Tennessee secondary. Looks pretty good at safety. Cornerbacks, young. And then we'll compare that to what West Virginia is going to be bringing to the game in Charlotte, and we'll see who feels confident there. Come on back on the Sports One.